everyone, my name is Margaret Kraling and this is my Bellingham Explore Junior High. This project is for Studio 502 for the spring 2024 semester, and my professor this semester was Erica Blank. To start off, I'll take you through an introduction and give you an overall project statement for my project as a whole. Then we'll move into some of the parts containing the analysis, the concept, and the process in Part E. Next, we'll move into the design development, which will then follow into systems. And finally, I will conclude with some critical reflection. To start off, I began exploring the city of Bellingham, Washington, and immediately following some of my research around the different demographics and culture and population, those were the main areas that I focused on during our site study. I came to the mission of effortless learning through exploration of interdisciplinary principles of opportunity. The reason that I came to this explanation and mission statement as a whole is because I realized that even in some of the smallest little towns, people can get stuck and maybe not have the resources that others may have in larger cities, or even just with larger connections through demographics and population. And so I wanted the students in this space to be able to explore how they learn and what ways they learn best to further them into high school and college education, so that they feel a few steps ahead of the world in front of them. Starting off with my analysis, we did a few different precedent studies, and the main takeaway that I took from our precedent studies was programming. I was able to see some similarities and differences within the precedents and use that for my final program layout. And additionally, in this phase, we were doing some massing studies. So on the left-hand side here, you will see that I have 3 different building masses set in 3 different views within my site. And this part of the process is very essential to me. I feel that I'm able to get out ideas quicker and more effectively through hand drawing. And so I took this time during the process to utilize some iterative sketching. So on the right-hand side, you'll see how I took those 3 masses and I explored what they would look like with private and public spaces versus different apertures and openings within the space versus openings to the public on the outside of the building. And so this part of the process was probably my favorite. I just find that it really jumpstarts my creative flow and creative thoughts. Finally, as another part of the analysis and concept and process as a whole was the site analysis. This part seemed a bit overwhelming to me at first because I felt that there was so many key details that I needed to turn around and implement into my space, which is true, but the further I worked on it and the more I dove into the specifics of the site, I felt that it actually was more helpful to know the site than to be intimidated by all that came with it. So in the left-hand side here, we have a few different diagrams showing the sun path, different wind directions, how shading might look on the site, along with where greenery could be added in. And below that is a more in-depth study of the site as a whole, including things like where the bay lines up to the site, where there are different parks, bike paths, and just some different things that give context to where this site and where this building is really going to sit within the community. And I also found the climate analysis to be extremely helpful in deciding some of my passive systems. I will get a little bit more into that later, but as you can see here, the graph points out some key details that are specific to my site, and I then utilized those and did a little more hand sketching to get some ideas flowing there. Moving on to design development, here I have 2 isometric views and their corresponding elevations, just to give some more context. Within the design development phase, I worked through things like structure and different systems within the space. And one thing that I really want to point out here on this specific slide is that I felt my building came so far from where it was in the beginning, and that is the beauty of design development. So let me take you through some of the key steps that got me here. To start off, we'll look at the different floors. Here we have the first, second, and third floors of my building, which have corresponding 3D views. The first floor has a few more views which show a floor plan as well as a ceiling plan, a section, and an elevation. Additionally, in the second floor, you can see another section there, and then the third floor, a more 3D view showing kind of the outward in look of this part. So starting with the first floor, this is a more communal space. This includes the cafeteria, some faculty offices. There's a lot of hallway room and lockers and gathering spaces for the students to socialize and really adjust and get ready for their school day. On the second floor, I have more of a structured learning space. So most of the second floor actually includes the learning units, and this was intentional in my design. I feel that it is often neglected to separate social space and focus space. I think sometimes those are seen as working better together, but specifically for my school, I wanted the kids to be able to focus on how they learn and how they learn best. And I think having a focused learning area really would succeed in doing that for each student. And then finally, on the third floor, there is kind of a mixed social and learning space. So this would be not as populated throughout the school day, but is always available for students. There's some lab spaces, some classrooms that may be a little less of a focused and serious classroom, as well as some library and reading spaces up there. Moving on to systems, so I have my interiors, my facade, and my structure laid out here. The interiors just include furniture, lighting, different floors throughout there. And then for the facade, I have curtain wall, brick, and metal cladding as parts of the facade throughout the building. And for the structure, I have chose to go with mass timber. After studying some things with the climate analysis as well as different cost factors, I decided that the post and beam structure using mass timber was going to be best for my space. And finally, on the right-hand side, you can see a wall detail that just includes some of that brick. You see a little bit of insulation, and then it continues on to the interior. For passive systems, one of my biggest takeaways from my passive systems was the building orientation. So my building is oriented so that the majority of my windows sit facing southwest. This was intentional, and it was actually based off of my climate analysis. It was one of the suggested systems to help keep my space regulated and have a reoccurring temperature that would satisfy the students year round. So my site in general tends to run a bit cooler year round. And so the more heat that the building can gain through the day and then repurpose through the night was better. So that is one of my larger passive systems. And then I have thermal insulation throughout the walls. Natural daylight and ventilation can be seen through windows and including the courtyard there. Shading and solar control include the overhangs from the roof, and then heating dissipation techniques also include any heat that is gained through the flooring or the different materials throughout the building and then released at night to help keep the building warm and not have to reheat as much in the morning. Finally, here I have my VAV HVAC. After lots of studying, I decided that this was the best system for my space, and part of that is because with the VAV system, you have one main air handler system, and then you have different VAV boxes that can control each room. Since my space has different sides of it, like the east and the west, that heat up differently than the southwest or the northeast, I decided this would be best as all the spaces will not be heating up the same. In conclusion, I really enjoyed learning about the technical systems this semester, and I took my first dive into Revit. These are all things that I look forward to exploring more next semester, and thank you all for listening.